So I thought I would show you my alcohol distillation setup here. This is like a 3-gallon Vivor distillation unit, the big container at the bottom, and the water-cooled condenser at the top. And I'm just putting it into a jar when it condenses out. And it's got water in, water out. In a pan, I'm going to put cold water and ice in it, a little pump. So it'll pump it into the bottom, and it'll gravity feed out the top, and just keep circulating. And I'll keep putting ice in it to keep it cold. So we'll start that pretty soon. We'll see how much we get. And these are the 2 containers of already fermented sugar water. So we'll see how much ethanol alcohol we get out of it this time. So wish me luck. Well, as you can see, I had to move it off of the hot plate because it kept rocking back and forth so badly. So I had to go ahead and put it on the stove. And you can see that the water level is rising now, the little pump. And it is now flowing into the cooling basin. And hopefully it won't flow over the top. And I turn the oven on, or the stove, and we'll just see how long it takes for this 1 gallon to start to boil and to start to produce some alcohol. I'll turn things back on later when it starts to work. Well, it's starting to bubble inside the tank. Temperature is a little above 100 degrees Fahrenheit right now and climbing. We'll wait till it gets to about 180 to 190 and it should be producing some alcohol. My cooling basin is working fairly well. Cold ice water coming in, going in at the bottom and flowing off the top by gravity and back into the pan. So hopefully that little hose won't pop out again and flood the countertop. And we'll see how it goes in a minute. Looks like the temperature's coming up nicely. It's approximately 140 degrees and climbing slowly. The cooling water is still flowing nicely. I'm going to have to add some more extra ice here just because it's melting so fast, but it does get hot. So hopefully it'll start to drip reasonably soon. Well, it looks like the temperature's up to about 170 degrees and still climbing, so I turned the heat down a little bit, and as you can see, it's actually starting to dribble out a little bit. So the alcohol is currently on its way out. And we'll keep monitoring the temperature and the drip rate. It's flowing pretty good now. Let's not lose any of it. And we'll see how it goes. Alright, I'll bring you back when we're getting close to the end. That's alcohol coming out, folks. Still coming out in kind of bursts. Yeah, that's just about how it's supposed to work. Get some dribbles. And see how much we've got so far in there, in the jar. Yeah, it's coming along. It's coming along quite nicely. Keep track of the temperature. It's about 185 degrees. So far that's looking pretty good. Cooling water is still flowing quite nicely, and the ice is melting fast. That is one hot coil. So far, so good. And I probably got twice as much as I got in the first batch. So, and it's still piddling out and looking pretty nice. Alrighty, so we can see we got quite a bit of alcohol in there so far for this 1 gallon batch. It's coming along quite nicely, probably maybe 8 ounces or so, a little less. It's still coming out. And the current temperature is approximately 190 degrees. And the temperature will continue to go up as the alcohol level goes down in the wash. So everything is going along according to plan. Cooling coils are working. And the ice bath is working pretty well. So we'll see what happens. Well, it's producing a lot more alcohol than I thought. I may have to go to another container if this doesn't start slowing down, and this is only about 80% of an entire gallon. So produced about 8 times more than my very first batch. So far it's still working. I have to keep adding ice to the chilled water bowl. And it's getting pretty warm in there because its coils are starting to get little bubbles on them. So I'll try to keep it as cool as I can until I can get some more ice. So it's working. This is pretty much what it's supposed to be doing. And you can see there is a... Had to go and change batteries. My little camera here was dying. So temperature's about 195. Still going good. The jar is getting pretty full. I may have to just stop and change jars pretty soon. And I ran out of ice, so I'm going to have to just start using ice cold water out of the sink best I can. Okay, looks like we're about coming close to the end. I was tasting what's coming out. It's still dripping, but the alcohol content is relatively low. And this is a second jar I started on this one single batch. And temperature is just about 200 degrees Fahrenheit in there, and that's about right. So, and this is, so far this jar is pretty full. Okay, for this first batch that I went through, you can see this is a standard size pickle jar. It's pretty full, and that's pretty good. I'll do a alcohol test on that to find out what its actual percentage is. And I turned the heat off, and I got about 4.5 ounces additional in another jar, so we'll mix them all together and see what we come up with. And for the meantime, I'm just going to head and let the temperature cool off all by itself. Like I said, it's about 200 degrees and dropping, and I'll just keep the condenser going for just a little while longer, and then disassemble everything and just let it sit and cool, and then do some measurements. Okay, what I'm going to do now, or at least I'm going to try, is I'm going to take some of the very first batch stuff and see what the specific gravity is, and also the amount of alcohol that I was able to distill out. I gotta take some of this out and fill it up to the block line. That gives me the best amount. I don't know how much that is. This way the little doodad I used to test, perfect, will not bottom out and break something. So let's see what we are. I'm not really hopeful. This is my first real good batch of alcohol from sugar. And we're not looking too good here. Let me see what we got. We have about 110 proof. Let's see. Okay, it's about 57% alcohol, which means that will burn, but it has to be distilled a couple more times. So we're reading about what? I can hardly see that. It's bouncing around too much. Okay, I'm reading about maybe a little more than 110, maybe 112, about 112 proof. And that's not really too bad for just some sugar and some yeast. So we'll keep working at it. We'll have to still this batch a couple more times until we get it up to where it can actually burn in my motorized bike. Yeah, just as a side note, this was my very first batch. You can see there's not much in there, but that was made with just baker's yeast and some sugar. And this amount here is made with distiller's yeast. It has a higher alcohol tolerance, about 20%. This stuff's good for about 5%. And as a side note, 50% alcohol and above will burn. Anything below 50% will not burn. That's where 100 proof came from. 100 proof means that it's 50% alcohol. Anything above 100 proof, or 50%, will actually burn. And I did test this already, and it's about 55%. Put it in a teaspoon, and it burned very well. So eventually this stuff will go in the motorized bike so I can putz around town.